Hey guys, and welcome to another installment of my sex ed series where I talk about sex, you guys learn things, I learn things, and everybody has fun. A while back, I made a video called Late Blooming, and this is like really far back, so most of you have probably never seen it. Basically, I talked about how late blooming is when as gay people, we typically don't have relationships as quick as our straight friends, so when we finally want to get into a relationship, we rush into things without thinking about, say, sex and thinking about if we're really good with that partner. We just want to rush into a relationship because we want to catch up to what all of our straight friends have been doing for many years. What I want to add to that discussion is talking about STDs and STIs. What I want to talk about is an experience that I had when I was younger, as you can tell by the title of this video. I've had two boyfriends in my life. I've had my ex-boyfriend and I've had my boyfriend now, Chris, who is amazing. But when I had my first boyfriend, there was a situation that, looking back, I've learned a lot from, but really sucks. When we were dating, this was probably like 3, 4, 5, I don't know, it was a few months into our relationship, and I started noticing that there wasn't something right happening downstairs. It just didn't feel right, and my penis was hurting, and it was itching, and it didn't look right. So I started Googling my symptoms. If you've ever been like a chronic WebMD searcher, you know that like that's the worst thing you can ever do is put your symptoms onto Google, because somehow you always have cancer. So I was looking through, I didn't see cancer, but what I did see is that WebMD was telling me that I had a yeast infection, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I, for some reason, thought only women can get yeast infections, but then I was reading that also men can get yeast infections, and I was like, okay, maybe I have a yeast infection, because the last thing I could even fathom was that I had an STD or an STI. I was 17 years old, so I was like really young, really scared. I didn't tell my boyfriend. I was like, he's gonna break up with me if he knows this. I wasn't cheating on him or anything like that, but I was just like scared that I would lose him. Very insecure 17-year-old. We'll talk about that in another video. I decided to tell my parents. And so I was like, hey guys, like I've been doing this research and I have these symptoms. I think I have a yeast infection. And they were like, okay, like let's go to the doctors, like let's see what they say. My mom took me to a walk-in clinic. I don't know if this is just Canada, if other like parts of the world have these walk-in clinics. Basically like you'll have your family doctor that knows you, and then there's walk-in clinics, which are sort of like, you just go there if you have like a fever and you just need to like get that quick medication really quickly. And so we were waiting in the walk-in clinic for like 2 hours. It was really bad that day, and I was so nervous the entire time. And so I finally get into the office and I'm like, I am not telling this guy that I've had sexual activity. He's gonna tell my mom, and then I'm gonna have this awkward discussion with my mom. So I was like, no, absolutely not. He's talking to me and I show him my downstairs area. I'm like, hey, look, it doesn't look right to me, like it's itchy and it's red and like something isn't right down there. I think I have a yeast infection. He's like, I can't think that way. Are you sexually active? And I was like, no, not sexually active at all. And he takes his clipboard and he like puts it on the counter and he sits down, he looks at me and he says, sir, I need you to tell me the truth. If you had oral sex, that makes you sexually active. And I was like, oh fuck, like he's gonna like sit down with me like he's my parent or something. So I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I've engaged in oral sex. And he's like, okay, well, you have chlamydia. What? He didn't do any tests on me, like not a single test, not a swab. I don't know what kind of other tests they do for chlamydia, but he was basically like, you have chlamydia. And as a 17-year-old, I was like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. I have chlamydia. Oh my god, like I was freaking out. My mom was in the waiting room. So he writes me a prescription for these 2 pills that you're supposed to take, and it's supposed to be taken once, and the chlamydia is supposed to go away. And so I took the prescription and I was like absolutely freaking out. Go to my mom, and I don't even remember what I told her. I told her a lie. Like I basically told her like, oh, like yeah, it's a yeast infection, I have to take these pills and it goes away, because like it's not like the pills are called chlamydia medication. We go to the pharmacist, and I was really scared because pharmacists do this thing where they will talk to you about like what this medication does. They don't necessarily know what you have, but they know what this medication does. So when we were standing there, I was so nervous that the pharmacist was gonna say something to my mom, being like, so for chlamydia, I was like, oh no. Pharmacists didn't end up saying the word chlamydia. They were talking about bacteria and stuff, and my mom was like, okay. Like she just thinks this is a yeast infection. So I go home, I take the pills, and I'm like worried, but I'm like, it's okay, like, you know, it's all right. I ended up calling my boyfriend and I told him, and then he was freaking out thinking like someone gave it to him. That part of the story really isn't important. I should have just broken up with him then, but I didn't. 2 weeks later, I still have this thing. My mom took me to my family doctor, and so I go to my family doctor, I'm showing that to her, and I'm like making up all these things. I'm like, maybe it's the fact that I use this soap. She's like, no, like as a doctor, I can't think this way. I told her that I am in a same-sex relationship, and then her eyebrows just like lift up, and she's like, she wasn't homophobic or anything like that. It's just, I guess, telling your doctor that you're in a same-sex relationship, you have different risks. So she knew that she had to approach the situation differently. She did like all these tests, like all of a sudden she's doing like HIV, all these tests on me, and I'm freaking out. My mom's in the waiting room still. She comes back and she's like, she did the tests or whatever, they were all immediate tests, and she's like, okay, so HIV, hold on, I don't have, where's the HIV results? Okay, and she goes out and she leaves for another like 20 minutes, and I'm freaking out like, oh my god, like what, do I have HIV now? And she comes back in, she's like, HIV? She's like, no, you're fine, okay, no HIV. She's like, she took a swab down there, and she's like, I'll call you, and da-da-da. So I left the office, and there was a grocery store downstairs, so my mom and I both went to the grocery store, and we were doing some shopping around, and I get a call on my phone, and I pick up, and I'm like, hello, and it's my doctor, and she goes, Michael, she's like, I realized what it is. She's like, I read in your file that you had strep throat a while ago. And I was like, yeah, I had strep throat, like, I had strep throat like 3 weeks earlier. And she goes, it's streptococcus bacteria. It hit me that my boyfriend had not just given me strep throat here, he had given me strep throat here. Well, I was relieved, but at the same time, I was like, oh my god. Like, my boyfriend has been infecting me for like the last 2 months of my relationship. So whatever, we hung up. I told him like, go get tested. He went to go get tested, and needless to say, he is a carrier of strep throat. All that time I was freaking out that I had an STD. Meanwhile, I just had strep. So why am I telling you this story? The reason why I told you this story is because as a 17-year-old, I really didn't take my sexual health that seriously, and I think a lot of people who are 17, 18, 19 and under, we don't take our sexual health that seriously because we kind of think we're invincible and we think that nothing bad is gonna happen to us. And I didn't have an STD or an STI, but I could have. There's been times in my first relationship where I didn't take sex and safe sex that seriously, and looking back, I regret that because some really bad things could have happened to me. I don't, like at 17, 18 years old, like I don't know truly if I trusted that guy, if that guy could have cheated on me and that he could have caught something and given it to me. I kind of thought, oh wow, this guy would never cheat on me, but at that age, I was very naive about a lot of things, and I think I could have gotten something like that. So, the reason I had made this video is to start a conversation around when you were, you know, younger, in your teenage years, your younger adult life, did you ever have a similar experience like that? Have you ever worried about whether you caught an STD or an STI, and how did you deal with that situation? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I make weekly videos about lots of really awesome LGBT, safe sex, style, fashion, travel, a whole bunch of lifestyle stuff. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I love you guys. Make sure to comment, rate, subscribe, most importantly, smile. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.
To say comment. Okay.